Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Outlaws and Gunslingers with your host Bang and Dang, and it's the first official episode
Because
for
it's the first of the month.
2023 and a new year.
We're going to cash our check and get drunk.
Right,
The
sometimes.
first of the month.
First of the new year, and I'm almost positive you did that. Why do I feel like I've said this before? I think you've done this every single time we've had a new year episode.
What?
I can almost guarantee you I will go back to the previous two New Year's, first of the New Year episodes, and you probably sang the same fucking song. I bet you.
Why?
Bet you. But either or, we, first in 2023 and many, 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 many more to come, because now we're moving in sort of to murderers.
We're doing a transitioning phase. Murderers, and then we get to the big murderers, the mafia.
Murderers, but not quite serial killers.
Right. Spree killers.
You know, just like single, I slaughtered my whole family in a day type shit.
Right.
And, but today we got some murders, but we got a bombing instead, which all the way back, we go back 122 years, or 112 years, my bad, all the way back to 1910 in Los Angeles. Apparently there was a bombing at the Los Angeles Times building.
See, every time we think we're getting away from the early 1900s, just when we thought we were out, they pull us back in.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming from the in terms of murders from the 1910s on up.
Assassination of who?
Assassination of William McKinley.
Really?
Yeah, remember he gets shot while shaking hands?
True.
And then Richard Speck, some dude that murdered some nurses in the 60s.
Idiot.
And the murder of Sylvia Likens. She was
He thought he was a vampire. She was a vampire.
murdered by her caregivers.
Thought it was a lichen.
A bunch of people.
A lichen is a
Lichen is like a
werewolf.
zombie or something, right?
Werewolf.
Oh. Then we got a bunch of more murders. Murders of Mary Ridoff. She was only 7 years old, so that should be pretty sick.
What?
Peter Weinberger. He was a baby, a 1-month-old infant.
But he was Jewish.
Similar to
Not Jewish. He was probably German.
kind of a Lindbergh case there.
Could have been a German Jew, right? Weinberger. They put them two together. What's that have to do with anything anyway? Why do you even care if he's Jewish?
I didn't say even anything about him being Jewish.
Jeez, man.
We got a couple massacres and some other interesting things going on. But we'll start off with the LA Times bombing, which happened October 1st, 1910, obviously in LA. It was the whole building, LA Times, by a union member belonging to the International Association of Bridge and Structural Iron Workers, or just the IW. Okay. The explosion started a fire which killed 21 occupants, injured 100 more.
Dang.
And, of course, just like those times, it was termed the crime of the century by the Los Angeles Times newspaper itself.
It's got to be at least a 10th one we did.
Yeah,
Wow.
for sure. Yeah, they're all like that. The IW was formed in 1896 as work was seasonal and most workers were unskilled. The union remained weak and much of the industry remained unorganized until about 1902.
All right. Well, that very year in 1902, the IW won a strike against the American Bridge Company, a subsidiary of newly formed U.S. Steel Corporation.
U.S. Steel.
That is the American Bridge Company. American Bridge was the dominant company in the iron industry. And within a year, the IW had not only organized almost every U.S. iron manufacturer, but had also won signed contracts, including union shop clauses. Look at that.
Good for them.
The McNamara brothers. The McNamara brothers were Irish-American unionists. John, known as JJ, and his younger brother James, known as JB, were both active in the IW.
Some Irishes, huh? Some Irishish.
I wonder if Cade McNamara is related to him.
Well, maybe. 1903, officials of U.S. Steel and the American Bridge founded the National Erectors Association, which is the NEA, a coalition of steel and iron industry employers.
I thought that was like a porn union.
Erectors. The primary goal of the NEA was to promote the open shop and assist employers in busting the unions in their industry.
Oh.
Employers used labor spies, agents provocateur, private detective agencies, and strikebreakers to engage in a campaign against the unions. Yeah, some dirty stuff was going on back in the day.
ain't
Dude.
kidding.
Local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies generally cooperated in this campaign, which often used violence against union members. Yeah, this is mob shit.
No one liked unions.
Of course not.
They love them today for some reason.
Well, there's a lot of people that are out there that don't like them. They just ain't seeing Jimmy Hoffa's getting kidnapped and killed.
Right. Hard pressed by the open shop campaign, the IW reacted by electing militant Frank M. Ryan.
Militant?
Yep, they elected him president. And J.J. McNamara, the Secretary of Treasury, in 1905.
Oh.
1 year later, 1906, the IW struck at American Bridge in an attempt to retain their contract. However, the open shop campaign was a significant success. By 1910, U.S. Steel had almost succeeded in driving all unions out of its plants.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah, get out of here, boys. Go to the electrical workers or something. Go to the auto guys. And unions and other iron manufacturing companies also vanished. Only the IW held on, though the strike at American Bridge continued.
Union officials used violence to counter the setbacks they had suffered. Of course, beginning in late 1906, national and local officials of the IW launched a dynamiting campaign. I'm like, this campaign is going to be done. Oh, my.
Oh, my.
Between 1906 and 1911, the Union blew up 110 ironworks,
Holy
though
shit.
only a few $1,000s in damages was done. Okay, you guys suck. NEA was well aware who was responsible for the bombing, since Herbert S. Hocken, a member of the IW's executive board, was their paid spy. Jeez, an executive, too. These hundreds of bombings were later described as perhaps the largest domestic terrorism campaign in U.S. history. Well, I would say if they're going around bombing 110 places,
Right.
not even the Unabomber or any of those guys bombed that much.
Well, they're bombing iron places, right?
Well, ironworks, right?
Yeah. I mean, is that really a domestic terrorism?
Of course.
Yeah.
You're frightening people.
Yeah.
That's terrorism.
They should be
Doing
going.
violence acts to intimidate and frighten people is technically terrorism.
They should have caused havoc for like the CEOs and stuff of those piece of shit groups. Employers in L.A. had been successfully resisting unionization for nearly half a century. Harrison Gray Otis, publisher of the L.A. Times, was vehemently anti-union.
Of course he was.
Otis first joined and then seized control of the local Merchants Association in 1896, renaming it the Merchants and Manufacturers Association, known as the M&M. That's so nice.
Oh.
And used it and his newspaper's large circulation to spearhead a 20-year campaign to end the city's few remaining unions.
That's fucked up.
I mean, what do you do? Without unions to keep wages high, open shop employers in L.A. were able to undermine the wage standards set in heavily unionized San Francisco. I mean, that was only one good thing. The wages, they say they're high, but it was probably worth what they were doing.
Right. Exactly. They want these guys, well, back then, what would it be, like $5 an hour? Maybe not even that.
Probably not even that.
And then they're like, you guys get paid $1.75 an hour.
Right. And you will work 80 hours a week
Right.
on call. Unions in San Francisco feared that employers in their city would also soon begin pressing for wage cuts and start an open shop drive of their own.
Oh.
The only solution was to reunionize L.A.
Yeah, they're like, we need to start the campaign to reunionize LA to keep these guys off of our backs. Right. San Francisco unions relied heavily on the IW, one of the few strong unions remaining in LA, obviously. The unionization campaign began in the spring of 1910. June 1st of 1910, 1,500 union members struck iron manufacturers in the city to win a $50 an hour minimum wage.
Oh,
50 an hour. It
shit.
was $13.26 in 2018, so maybe a little bit more now.
Right.
And overtime pay, they say. The M&M raised $350,000, which is equivalent to $9.3 million in
50 cents
2018.
an hour.
That's what I said.
You said $50 an hour.
No, I said 50 cents.
Did you?
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
Iron manufacturers in the city to win a $50 an hour minimum wage. Oh. $50 an hour.
50 cents an hour, which is equivalent to $13.26 pretty much today.
Right.
And then they raised another 350 million or thousand, which is 9.3 million today, to break the strike.
Oh, shit.
Superior Court judge issued a series of injunctions which all but banned picketing. Oh no, you can't do that.
All but banned picketing.
Yeah, that means they banned picketing.
No.
Yes.
All but.
No.
Banned.
That's just a stupid saying, but it banned picketing.
Pretty much, but
Yes.
not really.
July 15th, Los Angeles City Council unanimously enacted an ordinance banning picketing and speaking in public streets in a loud or unusual tone. With a penalty of 50 days in jail and a $100 fine or both. Holy shit.
That's why you seen back in the day, they really didn't say shit. They just walked around with their signs or just stood there with their signs.
Most union members refused to obey the injunctions ordinance, and 472 strikers were arrested.
Of course they were.
Strike, however, proved effective. By September, 13 new unions had formed, increasing union membership in the city by almost 60%. Nice.
June 3rd, 2010. Nope. June 3rd, 1910, 2 days after the start of the strike. Eugene Clancy, top IW official on the West Coast, wrote to J.J. McNamara. Now, Joe, what I want to hear is Hockin, referring to Herbert Hockin, the union official in charge of the dynamite bombings. However, Hockin had been caught taking money earmarked for bombing jobs, and McNamara no longer trusted him.
I assume so. You got this guy taking money.
Right, now you're going to use the bomb places. He asked another dynamiter, Jack Berry of St. Louis, to go to California, but Berry turned the job down when he learned of the targets. He's like, nah, don't do that, bud.
Nah, no thanks.
McNamara,
But he's a dynamiter.
Right. McNamara, yeah. Yeah, he already does like controlled demolitions.
Oh, they're working iron and steel. They remember they went on a dynamiting campaign. They're targeting ironworks and shit.
Right.
So apparently he's good enough to target ironworks, but he's too good to blow up a building, right?
McNamara finally sent his younger brother JB to California on the bombing mission.
Look at that. Well, evening of September 30th, 1910, JB left a suitcase full of dynamite in the narrow alley between the LA Times building and the Times Annex, known as Ink Alley, which contained the paper's printing press. The suitcase was left near barrels of flammable printer's ink. Dynamite had a detonator connected to a mechanical wind-up clock set to close an electric battery circuit at 1 a.m. and set off the explosion. Well, he also left similar bombs and set to explode at 1 a.m. next to the homes of both Times publisher Otis and Felix Z. Handler, who was secretary of the M&M. He then boarded a train to San Fran and said, I'm out of town when the bombs go off, and nobody will suspect a thing.
Do they know he was there?
These guys already know that the IW's bombing everything, but I don't know if they know it's him yet.
Oh, this was an escalation of the bombing campaign.
Yeah, you think?
Previously, only non-union workplaces had been targeted. Now, the IW was expanding the targets to the homes of anti-union leaders.
But that's probably what they should have been doing in the first place.
Well, I don't think they should have been doing anything in the first place.
Well, you know what I mean.
And the newspaper noted for its anti-union editorial policy.
Right.
That's what they were targeting. They started going after a newspaper.
Well, remember, because the guy that owns LA Times was anti-union, so then he published his shit in his newspaper.
True. 1:07 a.m., 1st of October, 1910. The bomb went off in the alley outside the three-story Times building, located at 1st Street and Broadway. 16 sticks of dynamite in the suitcase bomb were not enough to level the whole structure, but the bomb ignited natural gas pipes into the building.
Oh.
Times was a morning paper, and so had employees working during the late night, early morning hours.
Yeah, I'm sure. The bombers were unaware that a number of Times employees were working overnight
Why would they not know that? They know it's a morning paper.
Right.
They can't work during the day.
They're working overnight to produce an extra edition the next afternoon, which would carry the results of the Vanderbilt Cup auto race.
Oh, fantastic.
The bomb collapsed the side of the building, and the ensuing fire destroyed both the Times building and Ink Alley. Of the 115 people still in the building, 21 died, most of them in the fire. Times called the bombing the crime of the century.
Yeah.
And Otis excoriated unions as anarchic scum, cowardly murderers, leeches upon honest labor, and midnight assassins.
Oh.
Well, that was more one.
I like the name
morning.
Midnight Assassins.
Right.
You imagine that? That could be a wrestler's name.
Or
Midnight
band.
Assassin.
Or band name, right?
Yeah, the Midnight Assassins. We can be the cowardly murderers.
Anarchic scum. That sounds too like Antarctic.
Yeah, I know. And then one of our songs can be Leeches Upon Honest Labor. I love that song, guys.
Woo, leeches upon honest labor.
An unresolved contradiction was JB's knowledge of the gas pipes in the Times building. Did he know or didn't he know? Was that purposely?
I think you have to know there's gas pipes that go in a building, but
After
did you
you
know where
Right.
they were right by where the bomb was?
Right. Well, he might have. That'd be a good place to set it.
Right.
After he confessed to the bombing, he insisted that he had not known of the gas pipes. However, Artie McManigal testified that before their arrest, JB had told him that he had gone into the Times building. He was challenged twice, but each time passed by saying he was on his way to the composing room. Went to the basement and wrenched off a gas valve to maximize the destruction. Why would they just allow him to go into the composing room?
Wouldn't these guys know who he is?
And they just allow him to go in the composing rooms?
On the morning of 1st October, Z handlers found a package behind a bush beneath a bedroom window. Police were called and opened and disarmed the bomb, so that didn't go off. The spring of the mechanical clock had apparently been wound too tightly, slowing the clock and prevented the bomb from exploding on time. Jeez, so it could have exploded any time. That exploded bomb contained valuable clues as the bomber's method. In addition, investigators were able to trace the dynamite back to its source.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I would imagine dynamite's probably, especially by this time, it's got to be like serial numbers and all sorts of shit on it, right? You'd be pretty irresponsible not to.
Right. Especially what happened
With Bath.
late 1890s. And
Well, Bath was in the 30s, so. Well, dynamite farmers use that shit all the time, so.
the caretaker at the Otis home heard of the Z handler bomb and decided to search around this estate. He was like, there might be more.
Right.
He found a leather suitcase behind some bushes under a bay window. Again, the police arrived. Carried suitcases away from the house and out into the open. However, while they were cutting open the suitcase, the clockwork alarm went off inside the case.
Oh.
Police instantly ran to safety just before the bomb exploded. Good for them.
Wow.
Investigators speculated that, like the Z handler bomb, the clock mechanism at the Otis house had been wound too tight, delaying the explosion.
So that one would have exploded.
And maybe moving it around.
That's true, yeah.
Got
Sped it up.
Yeah.
Well, on the same night as the Times explosion, there was a reported attempted break-in at the Times auxiliary building in which 2 men were chased off by a security guard. The incident was at first assumed to be another bombing attempt. The IW Strike Committee in Los Angeles and Samuel Gompers, who was president of the American Federation of Labor, or AFL, immediately condemned the bombing and claimed no labor union or individual could have been responsible.
No way.
Well, but they were.
There's no way. I'm telling you right now, there's no way we would do
That's
that.
not how we resort to our problems.
No. After 7 months, it appeared that the Times bombers had escaped arrest and gone to ground.
Good.
The IW decided it was time for more bombings in
Said,
LA.
hey, boys, gotta go some more.
And they were like, McManigal, we'll give you a list of 5 bombing targets. And we're first of all, it's going to be Times Auxiliary Printing Plant. Then you're going to go on to the Llewellyn Iron Works. From there, you're going to go to the Baker Iron Works and 2 non-unit construction sites. How do you feel about that? Well, that's only 4. Well, that's 5. Well, that's only 5. Well, that's what we said.
Well, he's like, what are the construction sites?
Right. And the construction sites are as followed. The L.A. County Hall of Records.
Ooh. Oh, no.
And the Hotel Alexandria.
Oh.
Why?
Why not?
JJ told McManigal that he had promised the Coast Bunch a Christmas present and wanted the explosions to take place on Christmas Day.
Oh.
McManigal set off a dynamite bomb at the Llewellyn Iron Works, partially wrecking the plant with the damage costing $25,000.
Wow.
Probably close to a couple 200,000 nowadays, right?
Somewhere around there, right?
But he found 2 of the other sites too closely guarded and never visiting the remaining 2. He's like, JJ was angry at this. He was like, you only bombed one of the sites. But McManigal told him that security was too tight.
I mean, what do you want to do, man?
Right. He's like, dude, I don't care.
I'm not
I'm
risking
all
shit.
for it, but I'm not just
Right.
I'm not doing a
I'm not gonna get
kamikaze.
sloppy.
Right. I'm not a Japanese airplane pilot. And he's like, what's that?
Right.
What's that? You'll see, buddy.
Airplane.
You'll see.
The Times and law enforcement authorities announced that the perpetrators would be caught immediately, but
There's
weeks
airplanes
passed.
in 1910, wasn't it? When did the Oswald?
I mean,
what are they called? Oswald.
The Wright brothers did
Wright
it
brothers.
in like early 1900s, but nothing like significant was in 1910.
Definitely in time for World War One, so it's coming in place.
No.
Yeah, World War One definitely had planes.
Yeah, but like very few. Yeah, they were first flown, but you didn't have.
What the Wrights look like?
Where's the biplane? Okay, so you got that. Where's the Wrights? Right, Model
obviously,
B.
W. That's more of a plane. How they were, yeah.
I think that one might be at the Henry Ford.
See these guys.
I think, yeah, that is not the Henry Ford. I've seen that in person, guys. Yes. Well, Times and law enforcement authorities announced that the perpetrators would be caught immediately. But weeks passed, no arrests were made. City of Los Angeles posted a $25,000 reward. Wow. In 1910 for the capture of the bombers, and the M&M raised another 50. So 75 altogether? Damn. That's like $1 million something.
You ain't kidding.
October 2nd, 1910, Mayor George. Why didn't the union guys like have like a scapegoat guy? Like, hey man, you're gonna have to take one for the team. We're gonna get like $2 million for this.
Right.
Okay.
Damn right, right?
October 2nd, 1910, Mayor George Alexander hired private detective William J. Burns to catch the guilty parties. Burns had been investigating the nationwide wave of iron manufacturing plant bombings for the past 4 years on behalf of the NEA. Took the city job as part of his investigation. From Hocken, his paid IW spy, Burns learned that McManigal had been handling the Union's bombing campaign on orders from Union President Frank Ryan and J.J. McNamara, who was the Secretary-Treasurer.
Oh, yes, he was. Well, McManigal and JJ were borderline alcoholics.
Well, everybody was in the 1910s, right?
They liked to drink and hunt at the same time.
Oh, no! Not allowed to do that.
Dick Cheney-ing it up, huh?
Right. Who
Burns
got
of-
shot in the face?
Burns infiltrated one of their late winter hunting trips with a spy. During the trip, JJ boasts about having blown up the Times building. The undercover private eye also took a photo of JJ that Burns presented to a hotel clerk in L.A., who recognized him as Mr. J.B. Bryce, who had checked in the day before the bombing and hurriedly checked out the following morning.
But JJ wasn't the one that did it. It was JB that did it.
Right. He said Mr. J.B. Bryce. Oh. Yeah, Mr. J.B. Bryce.
JB, right. Yeah, but they said took a picture of JJ and
yeah.
recognized him as JB.
Well, they're brothers. And back then, a picture of 1910. They were really good pictures. I can see the.
He actually had the fucking the plate,
Right.
whatever it's called. What is it called? The press or something?
Yeah. The negative. Right.
Yeah, but it wasn't called that. It was the actual plate that you press the picture on.
Right.
April 14th, 1911, Burns' son Raymond and police officers from Detroit and Chicago went to the Oxford Hotel in Detroit and arrested McManigal and J.B. McNamara. Look at them hiding out in Detroit with the Purple Gang and shit, right?
Look at that shit.
That's actually that's before the Purple Gang. Dynamite, blasting caps, and alarm clocks were found in their suitcases.
Ooh, that's not a good thing.
No. The men were told they were being arrested for robbing a bank in Chicago.
Whoa.
Well, they were like, why would you tell them that if they didn't do it? They're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Right.
Since they had watertight alibis for that alleged crime, both men agreed to accompany Burns and the police officers back to Chicago. So they tricked them, and they're like, we're getting off of this shit. We know where we were. Right. You dirty sons of bitches.
Like, oh, I thought you guys were here. What happened in California? Well, what happened in California? Oh, nothing.
Look at these dirties. Look at these guys.
Well, in Chicago, McManigal and JB were not taken to a police station.
They were taken to an alley and shot in the back of the fucking head.
Well, they were taken to a private home of Police Sergeant William Reed. And they were held there from April 13th to April 20th. That's kidnapping.
Yeah, probably not protocol.
No. Burns apparently convinced McManigal that he knew everything and that McManigal could save himself by cutting a deal with authorities. He was like, no, dude, you just kidnapped me, so I think I'm pretty good here. McManigal agreed.
Well, he didn't do that at all.
McManigal was like, all right, I'll tell you all that I know, but I must get a lighter sentence.
Or none at all. Immunity, motherfuckers, because
No.
he didn't participate in it.
No. He
he
said
did, though.
he said the only way I'll sign this.
No, he didn't do the Times bombing, though. He did
Right.
the other ones.
Right. He said he'll sign a confession if he gets a lighter sentence, and he'll tell everything he knows.
Wow.
He also said that he had not participated in the Times bombing, but that JB had told him about it, so it makes him an accomplice. And that it was done by
Right.
JB and two others, Matthew Schmidt and David Kaplan. Schmidt and Kaplan evaded arrest until 1915.
Good for them, right?
Look at those guys.
McManigal also said that others involved included Ryan, JJ, Hocken, and other IW leaders. Of course, all the leaders would be.
Obviously.
Burns wired California officials and secured extradition papers for McManigal, JJ, and JB. And then Burns left for Indianapolis, where the IW had their headquarters.
Oh.
Damn, they were all the way in Indianapolis.
Holy shit.
So they're doing this shit all around the country at this time, too.
Well, yeah, you think that would be because iron works usually,
Pittsburgh.
yeah,
Well,
steel.
steel. Same thing, right?
No, it's not.
Kind of. All right. With assistant officials of the NEA, he convinced Indiana Governor Thomas R. Marshall to issue an arrest warrant for JJ.
Ooh-wee. Fantastic. April 22, Burns and two local police officers burst into an executive board meeting of the IW and arrested JJ on the spot.
Detectives.
He was also taken before a local circuit court, where the judge refused his request for an attorney.
What? You can't do that.
Yeah, the judge did that without legal authority. Released him into custody
Whoa.
of Burns.
Yeah, because all these guys are in the anti-union shit, and they're like, fuck these union guys. We're going to rough them up behind the scenes, and they ain't getting no damn attorney.
Well, from the arrest to departure took 30 minutes. They did that quick. It was a kidnapping.
Pretty much.
The same day, McManigal and JB were taken by L.A. police via train to California. Damn, L.A. police is way in hell out there.
They probably had to come get them, right?
All three men arrived in L.A. on April 26th. Took 4 days on train. Damn.
National labor movement was outraged by the way the McNamaras had been treated, and labor leaders
Yeah.
quick to defend the brothers' innocence.
Fuck yeah. I mean,
Well, I don't know about the innocence,
not the
but
innocence,
the way
but
they were treated for sure.
right.
They contended that Burns had engaged in kidnapping, misrepresentation of his status as a law enforcement officer, and unlawful imprisonment in his handling of McManigal and JB. Of course, we said that already.
Right.
Local circuit judge had unlawfully denied J.J. McNamara access to legal representation and
Right.
had no authority to approve his extradition. Right.
Do that shit.
Both McNamaras had been arrested on the basis of a confession wrung from a third man who they believed had been kidnapped and perhaps coerced into confessing.
No, see?
Wow, talk about an open and shut mistrial or drop charges.
Right.
Fucking all right now. Just
This
do
has-
it now. Just
this have-
eliminate further embarrassment there, law enforcement, because you guys fucked up.
Yeah, this says J. Edgar Hoover.
This is before 20 years, 30 years, 20
Right.
years before J.
Right.
Edgar. Well, eight years. But
Right.
yeah.
But still, this has this kind of stuff written all over it. Maybe this is where he learned.
This isn't even higher level shit. This
Jesus.
is just the locals.
Jeez, oh, Pete. To many in organized labor, the McNamara case appeared to be a repeat of Bill Haywood case of 1906.
Well,
Bill Haywood
we'll
do?
take their word for it.
Right. In that case, leaders of the Western Federation of Miners were accused of using dynamite to assassinate an ex-governor of Idaho.
Oh, shit.
As in the McNamara case, a union member had confessed and implicated union leadership. The defendants were extradited in a highly irregular manner, and the prosecution's investigation was led by a detective with strong ties to anti-union business interests.
Oh, okay.
In that case, the accused union leaders were found
Not
guilty. Nowadays, they would be found
Something tells
guilty.
me, even with this case, they're going to be found guilty, though.
Right.
Labor leaders were also convinced of the McNamara's innocence by other factors.
But they weren't innocent.
Well, we don't know that. The open shop, they don't know that. The open shop movement and virulent hostility shown by Otis convinced many that the whole event was a frame-up, with some including Eugene versus Debs accusing... Oh, Eugene versus... with some, including Eugene v. Debs, accusing Otis himself of bombing the Times building. Otis is the owner of the Times, by the way.
Right.
Burns repeatedly implied that Gompers and other labor leaders were involved in the national bombing campaign, and AFL officials feared a national campaign of arrests designed to destroy the nascent labor movement might be in the works. Right. He's like, there's a witch hunt for all our labor guys. You're trying to take these labors out.
Right.
There's unions out, you bastards. George Alexander, mayor of Los Angeles, was locked in a very close re-election battle against Job Harriman, a Socialist Party of America candidate. So
It's all making
here
sense.
you go, election year in L.A.
Never do anything on election year. These guys should have waited.
Right.
The bombing, some felt, might simply be a plot to keep Harriman out of city council.
Or Hall.
All right, City Hall. Organized labor found J.J. McNamara an attractive figure to rally behind.
Right.
By outward appearances, he did not look like a man who would dynamite his enemies. Does anybody look like a man?
What is that? What is that? What do you got to
What is
look
it?
like to
What is
not?
that? You got to be like a miner coming
I-
up with your dirty face and hats and stuff.
Yeah, that's right. Like a vagrant type guy or something.
He was just 34 years old. He was handsome, athletic build, always well dressed and well spoken. He had earned a law degree at night while working for the Ironworkers Union.
Good for him.
J.J. McNamara assured Gompers they had nothing to do with the Times bombing. He's like, what are you talking?
Now, Gompers is the guy that runs the AFL.
Right.
Right.
He's like, come on. Really? Look at me.
Do you think I would do something like that? I'm here for the cause. You know that.
Right. Gompers believed him, and he believed him completely.
Jeez, Gompers, you are a, I don't know. I was trying
Right.
to find something that would start with a G.
Right.
You're a gullible Gomper.
Right. Well, then Gomper threw everything he had to defend the McNamaras.
Of course he did.
With Gomper's endorsement, the entire U.S. labor movement supported the McNamaras with parades, mass rallies, publicity campaigns, donations to the McNamara's defense
Oh,
fund.
man. They're about to get a big pie in their face, aren't
you
they?
ain't kidding.
Well, Burns was offended by accusations from labor supporters that he had planted the evidence that he had seized at the union headquarters in Indianapolis. I wouldn't put it past people to plant some shit. We've learned that.
Right.
He was particularly critical of Samuel Gompers. Burns did not believe that Gompers was part of the dynamite plot, but blamed him for being irresponsible and accusing Burns of framing the McNamaras in the face of overwhelming evidence.
No.
Yeah, Burns wrote that Gompers could not have been unaware of the 4-year dynamiting campaign, which should have given him pause. Right, like, yeah, that's true. This
Right.
guy had to have known there was 100 and what, they say 12 union works bombed?
It's ridiculous.
I mean, you got to stick up for your own now.
Well, the defense blamed the LA Times explosion on an accidental ignition of a gas leak and denied that dynamite was
Did they
in
not
any way
find
involved.
any? They had the 2 bombs that they recovered at the dudes those 2 houses, so couldn't find any materials at the bombing site.
I don't think so. That shit would have been done burned up, right?
No,
I would say so.
it had to be something.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
It is 1910, though, right?
The rest of the evidence, such as the other bombs found in L.A. the next morning and all the material seized at Union headquarters at Indianapolis, claimed was planted. They're like, you guys planted that shit or else it would have went off.
Right.
They accused Otis of taking advantage of a tragic accident to imprison Union leaders on fabricated charges.
Oh, look at them. Now they got the public behind their side, and wow, yeah.
Right.
To support the accidental gas explosion theory, the State Federation of Labor of California appointed a committee to travel to Los Angeles and investigate the matter. The committee included a number of Western Federation of Miner members who would have been familiar with dynamite. Right. Mm-hmm. The committee reported back that there were no signs of a dynamite explosion at the Times building and that it was solely a gas explosion.
Right.
But these guys, the miners, have already been through this shit.
Right.
They also included that Otis knew that it was an accident, but had fabricated charges. How would they know that? That he fabricated charges against the McNamaras partly to discredit labor unions and partly to evade blame for his negligence that allowed the gas accident to happen, which is completely plausible as well.
It's very possible.
So you got both sides. The miners already been through the shit, and they've seen what their unions have went through. So they probably sympathize with the unions of the steel workers and iron workers. But at the other side, Otis is probably a piece of shit. He's a newspaper conglomerate.
Right. Well, this is what the report declared. On the other hand, those who are familiar with the peculiarities of explosions by dynamiting, the evidence furnishes an overwhelming certainty that there was no dynamite connected with the affair.
All right.
Some went farther. Eugene Debs accused Harrison Otis of blowing up his own building to frame labor leaders. He referred to the bombing as a job that General Otis did himself, or had it done, for I know the man well.
Wow, so nobody's on Otis's side, huh? Well, Iron Workers President Frank Ryan asked Clarence Darrow to defend the McNamaras. Darrow had become a hero in labor circles for a successful defense of labor leader Bill Haywood in 1906.
This Bill Haywood guy again.
However, Darrow was in ill health, and although organized labor was convinced of the McNamara's innocence, Darrow realized that the evidence against them was overwhelming.
Right.
Yes, and even him seems like, and that the brothers were almost certainly guilty.
Right.
Soon after the arrest, and before he agreed to represent the McNamaras, he confided this to a journalist as the reason he was reluctant to take the case.
Right.
Well, Ryan turned to Harriman, who agreed to be the brothers' defense attorney. Gompers, however, visited Darrow in Chicago and convinced him that the case required his expertise.
Okay.
Well, he doesn't have to be the main guy that's up there talking, but he can assist at least, right?
Reluctantly, Darrow consented to be the lead defense attorney. Harriman stayed on. Right. Harriman stayed on as his assistant. Darrow also recruited former L.A. County Assistant District Attorney LeCompte Davis and a pro-union Indiana judge, Cyrus F. McNutt. Also president of the L.A. Chamber of Commerce, Joseph Scott, as co-counsel for the defense. So he got himself a nice little...
team.
All right. The McNamaras were arraigned 5th May, 1911. They pled not guilty. McManigal, who had turned state's evidence, was not charged at the time.
Of course not.
Darrow argued that he would need $350,000, which is $10 million in 2022, for the defense.
Damn, so they raised $350 million, which was 9.3 or 350,000 earlier in the episode, which was 9.3 in 2018. So it gained 700,000 in 4 years.
Look at that.
Look at that.
And they said the dollar was dying.
Right. The AFL, who already paid Darrow a $50,000 retainer, immediately began to raise the additional funds. They said, all right. The AFL Executive Council established a permanent, quote-unquote, Ways and Means Committee to seek money.
Okay.
Federation appealed to local, state, regional, and national unions to donate 25 cents per capita to the defense fund, set up defense committees in larger cities throughout the nation to take donations.
Nope.
Darrow also insisted that he needed popular support to put political pressure on the prosecution. Pins, buttons, and other paraphernalia were sold to raise money, in a film about JJ called A Martyr to His Cause was produced.
Of course it was.
Going all out with that,
Damn right.
It premiered in Cincinnati, Ohio, and an estimated 50,000 people paid to see it. Wow.
Damn.
It's not even $50,000, though.
No.
A movie's what? 10 cents?
Maybe 5 cents.
All right. Labor Day throughout the nation was declared to be McNamara Day, and mass marches were held in 13 major cities in support of the defendants. Wow. What is this? This is like a Black Lives Matter shit
Look at that
with the
shit.
McNamara's.
Wow.
McNamara's Life Matters, baby.
Wow. MLM, baby.
Right.
Jury selection began on October 25th as voir dire continued, which means tell the truth. That's
So the jurors pretty much are like, we swear to tell the truth and not be biased and all that good stuff.
Dare became increasingly concerned about the outcome of the trial. He felt JB could not be relied on as a witness and would break down under cross-examination.
Why is JB the witness when he's the one that did it?
Right. 10 days before.
So JJ's taking the fall, huh?
Right. 10
Obviously.
days before the jury selection on October 15th, he learned that the prosecution had acquired masses of evidence to support 21 separate charges. Wow. October 18th, he learned that the United States Attorney General George W. Wickersham had obtained evidence on his own to secure, with President William Taft's approval, a federal subpoena against the McNamaras. Oh, shit.
Federal.
They even know the federal's coming in. They got some evidence. The first panel of jurors were exhausted on October 25th, forcing the court to order an additional panel of jurors to appear.
So nobody met their criteria, huh?
The jury was finally seated on the 7th of November.
Well, jury selection continued. Muckraking journalist Lincoln Steffens arrived in Los Angeles. That must mean like a piece of shit.
Right.
Tabloid, National Enquirer.
Right.
Reform-minded writers and photographers claim to expose corruption and wrongdoing. Okay.
All right.
So he's like a exposer, right?
Right. He's a whistleblower.
Steffens, convinced the McNamaras were guilty, visited them in jail. Steffens proposed to defend their actions in print as justifiable dynamiting. No, you can't say that. In the face of employer violence and state-sponsored repression of labor unions.
I mean,
JB was an eager proponent of Steffens' plans, but JJ refused to cooperate unless Darrow agreed. Darrow was stunned by Steffens' report that the brothers had admitted their guilt to him.
Wow.
But with his health worsening and his pessimism about the defense growing, Darrow agreed to permit the McNamaras to cooperate with Steffens.
No
wow. He's like, I don't give a fuck.
right. I don't care.
I'm about to die.
It's the weekend of November 19th and 20th. Darrow and Steffens met with newspaper publisher E.W. Scripps. Oh, ain't that a hell of a name.
Right.
During the discussions of the trial, Darrow raised the possibility of pressuring the prosecution into accepting a plea bargain. In exchange for light prison terms for McNamara's, the AFL would end its debilitating strike and organizing efforts against L.A. employers.
Well, that's fucked up. Put those guys in jail.
All right. Steffens met with Otis and Harry Chandler, Otis' son-in-law, and assistant general manager at the L.A. Times. Both men agreed to the plan. The success of the AFL's public opinion campaign had apparently worried both newspapermen, and the ironwork's success in maintaining the strike had weakened the resolve of many in the L.A. business community.
Yeah, sure
and even widened it.
Right. Chandler offered to open negotiations with the district attorney John D. Fredericks. Although a group of Los Angeles businessmen had endorsed the secret talks, they had no legal power over the prosecutor, Fredericks, obviously.
Right.
Fredericks refused to sanction any plan which let the McNamaras go free.
Oh, shit.
The National Erectors Association had learned of the talks and was pressing Fredericks to reject any plea bargain.
Right.
As a compromise, Fredericks demanded that JB receive life in prison and JJ receive a much shorter term. Why is he saying JB? JB's not even on trial or nothing, though. But now I guess he knows that JB and them admitted to it, so these guys are idiots.
Well, this agreement was laid before the McNamara brothers. JB initially refused to agree with any plea bargain that did not set his brother free. But when Darrow told him that a settlement was possible only if both brothers pleaded guilty, JB gave his consent. Darrow sent for a representative of the AFL. The shocked labor leader refused to accept the agreement until Darrow convinced him that the defense had almost no chance. Darrow had hoped that a plea bargain, rather than an admission of guilt in open court, would be all that was needed. But Los Angeles employers were worried that defense attorney Harriman would trounce Mayor Alexander on election day. That's what's December 5th.
Yeah, see, now these guys are, they don't want to give in to the unions now because they're worried that their guy's not going to win.
Right.
Nothing short of an actual admission of guilt in open court would discredit Harriman and prevent his victory, and the employees were pressing hard for one.
Oh, wow.
The defense's position weakened further when, November 28, Darrow was accused of attempted bribery of a juror.
Oh, no.
The defense team's chief investigator had been arrested for bribing a juror, and Darrow had been seen in public passing the investigator money.
Oh, jeez.
With Darrow himself on the verge of being discredited, the defense's hope for a simple plea bargain ended.
Why in the hell would he do that?
Gotta get those jurors, but why do you do it in public?
December 1st, 1911, the McNamara brothers changed their pleas in open court to guilty. James B. McNamara admitted to murder by having set the bomb that destroyed the LA Times building on the 1st of October in 1910. John J. McNamara, setting foot for the first time in court, admitted to having ordered the bombing of the Llewellyn Iron Works on the 25th of December.
But he also ordered the one of the New York Times or the LA Times.
J.J. McNamara later told an interview that Darrow had kept the McNamara brothers isolated from public. Had they known how strongly the public was on their side, they would not have agreed to the plea deal.
He claimed.
Really?
How could you not see the public opinion like you weren't reading newspapers and shit, dude?
Get the hell out of here.
At a sentencing hearing, Jim McNamara's confession was read in court. It says, I, James B. McNamara, having heretofore pleaded guilty to the crime of murder, desire to make this statement of facts. Night of September 30th, 1920 at 5:45 p.m., I placed in Ink Alley, a portion of the Times building, a suitcase containing 16 sticks of 80% dynamite, set to explode at 1 o'clock the next morning. It was my intention to injure the building and scare the owners. I sincerely regret that these unfortunate men lost their lives. If the giving of my life would bring them back, I would gladly give it. In fact, in pleading guilty to murder in the first degree, I've placed my life in the hands of the state.
Right.
Judge Bordwell rejected the defendant's assertions that they did not intend to harm the Times workers. He says, a man who would put 16 sticks of 80% dynamite in the building in which you, as a printer, knew gas was burning in many places and in which you knew there were scores of human beings toiling, must have no regard for whatever the lives of his fellow human beings. He must have been a murderer at heart. Good point, Judge.
Yeah, that's a good point. After sentencing, Judge Bordwell issued a long statement minimizing the role of Lincoln Steffens in bringing about the plea deal. Bordwell wrote that the prosecution had long sought a plea deal, but could not agree to JB's insistence that his brother let go free.
Right.
The judge stated that what really broke the deadlock was the arrest of Burt Franklin, a detective hired by the defense, on a charge of attempted bribery of jurors.
Can't do that.
The bribery attempt, he wrote, revealed how desperate the defense was and forced them to agree to a prison sentence for JJ. They're like, these guys must be really guilty. Both got to go. Right. Both got to go.
Well, Prosecutor Fredericks justified the plea deal because by having the McNamara's plea guilty, he said, there would be no doubt of their guilt. Without a guilty plea, their supporters would always believe they were framed.
All right.
Darrow was later criticized for misleading and pressuring the McNamaras into each pleading guilty. There remained a suspicion that, following the arrest of his chief jury investigator, Franklin, Darrow needed to hurry up the guilty pleas because he knew that he would be accused of attempted bribery as well.
Oh, jeez.
And one of his defenses would be that a plea deal had already been agreed upon, and so that he had no motive to bribe jurors.
Right. And then it wasn't the case.
Right, but it didn't happen that way, did it?
Sure now didn't. Darrow defended the guilty pleas by citing the overwhelming evidence against the brothers. From the first, there was never the slightest chance to win. To those who say it would have been better to have gone to trial and suffered complete defeat, I would call attention to the fact that there were 30 or 40 hotel registers, 3 in L.A., many in San Francisco, and others in different parts of the country. There were scores of witnesses to identify J.B. McNamara as being present, particularly on that very day, and one at least in the building.
He already said that he went there and wrenched up the gas, right? Idiot.
There was overwhelming evidence of all kinds, which no one could have surmounted if they would.
Wow.
I mean, what are you going to do?
Right.
What are you going to do? These guys, it was too obvious.
He was like, I can't pass up the $50,000 payday. That's pretty much why he did it. Well, following the guilty pleas, Darrow was criticized for using deception to raise money for his client's defense, allowing supporters to believe in their innocence in order to raise a war chest of $200,000 for contributions by working men and spend about $100,000 of it to mount an expensive effort, while knowing all along that the McNamara brothers were guilty. Well, I mean, you still got to try. Darrow said that his first duty was to his clients and that he did whatever needed to raise the funds for the best defense possible. Samuel Gompers was traveling by rail in New Jersey when the change in plea was made. A reporter with the Associated Press boarded his train, woke him, and handed him the dispatch regarding the guilty verdicts. I'm astounded, he said. The McNamaras have betrayed labor. Well, yeah, because he genuinely believed him.
All right.
Idiot.
Socialist Party, however.
So he is the head of the AFL or whatever it's called.
Right.
He should be immediately fired.
Right, definitely. Well, the Socialist Party refused to condemn the McNamara brothers.
Of course not.
Arguing that their actions were justified in view of supposed employer and state-sponsored terror their union had faced for the past 25 years. These guys have been freaking terrorizing us for 25 years.
What's they have?
Haywood and Debs echoed that sentiment. Debs wrote, It is easy enough for a gentleman of education and refinement to sit at his typewriter and point out the crimes of the workers. But let him be one of them himself, reared in hard poverty, denied education, thrown into brute struggle for existence from childhood, oppressed, exploited, forced to strike, clubbed by the police, jailed while his family is evicted, and his wife and children are hungry.
What would you do if you're sitting at home and the kids are alone, crying on the bathroom floor because he's hungry, and the only way to feed him is to bomb a couple buildings?
And he will hesitate to condemn these as criminals who fight against the crimes of which they are the victims of. Such savage methods as have been forced upon them by their master.
Doesn't mean you can go fire bomb people and dynamite people, guy.
Right.
Daryl's co-counsel on the McNamara case, Job Harriman, was defeated by Mayor Alexander. Job Harriman. He was defeated by Mayor Alexander in a landslide loss on December 5th, of course. Although Harriman had run ahead of Alexander in the 5-way primary, winning 44% of the vote to Alexander's 37%. Following the McNamara confession, Harriman received just 38% of the votes in the runoff.
Ooh.
Well, they still went to a runoff, though, so they're still unsure then. Two brothers entered San Quentin State Prison on December 9th. J.B. McNamara's post-trial conclusion was, you see, the whole damn world believes in dynamite.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Okay. As part of McNamara's brother's plea bargain, L.A. prosecutors had agreed not to pursue other labor union officials for the L.A. bombings.
Oh, good for them, right?
Federal government was not a party to the agreement.
The feds are like, hold up.
Hey, there's others that we can charge.
We don't play.
We're going to charge them till the wheels fall off or something. Right. In 1912, brought charges against 54 union men, mostly national and local officials of the Iron Workers Union. They charged them for involvement in the 5-year nationwide campaign of dynamite.
All right.
Because each thing...
Why would it be federal, though? Because none of those were federal buildings or anything.
I don't know, but because such things as murder or destruction of property were not federal crimes, the defendants were charged with the federal crime of conspiracy to illegally transport dynamite on railroad trains.
Oh, they got them on a fucking technicality.
They're like, man, how can we get it? Wait, did you say they were on a train?
Wait a minute. And they transported it?
Got them!
All right, good for you.
Got him. Number of different attorneys represented different defendants.
Of course.
But leading defense was sitting U.S. Senator from Indiana, John W. Kern. Leading up, why should it be a defense? A senator shouldn't be a diff.
Why is he defending dynamiters? I don't know. Is he? Bet you he's Republican.
Fucking Senator John.
Bet you he's Republican.
No, he's probably Democrat.
He's a Democratic United States Senator from Indiana. While the title was unofficial, he was considered to be the first Senate Majority Leader. Wow.
Well,
and in turn, the first Senate Democratic Leader.
Oh.
Look at him. That guy is fucking corrupt as shit.
Yeah, definitely does. If you can't see a man's lips, they're corrupt as hell. Leading up to the trial, the number of defendants was reduced from 54 to 48.
Okay. The McNamara brothers were dropped.
Was that because they just didn't want to do that, or they just went missing?
Well, the McNamara brothers were dropped from the trial because they were already in prison in California.
There's two.
Two more pled guilty. Oh. One was a fugitive and could not be found. And the trial at one was delayed because of an injury.
Whoa! Wait a minute.
Injury, huh?
Well, iron worker.
I guess. Judge, I don't think he's an iron worker. He's just part of the union, right?
He slipped
the union head guy, right?
He slipped going up the stairs. He had too many coffees in his hand.
Judge A.B. Anderson dismissed charges against 8 men after the trial started for lack of evidence.
Oh, look at that shit.
Frank Eckhoff, a friend of John McNamara, testified that following the Times bombing, J.B. had asked him to murder Mary Dye, who was a stenographer at Union headquarters because she knew too much.
Oh, shit.
Jim McNamara had wanted him to plant an explosive under her seat on a commuter train. Eckhoff had refused.
He's like, dude, no.
You're
fucking crazy.
December 28, 1912, the jury found 38 of the remaining 40 guilty.
Holy shit.
Wow.
2 days later, Judge A.B. Anderson handed out sentences, calling the dynamite campaign a veritable reign of terror.
Right.
He commented on saying, the evidence shows some of these defendants to be guilty of murder, but they are not charged with that crime. This court cannot punish them for that, nor should it be influenced by such consideration in fixing
how many of the bombings actually killed somebody? Besides the Times one?
I think just that one.
Well, I don't know. There was 112. Somebody had to have been killed, right?
All right. He went on to say, nor should it be influenced by such consideration in fixing the measure of punishment for the crimes charged.
Right.
6 defendants were given suspended sentences. Union President Frank Ryan was handed the longest sentence, 7 years.
7 years.
He'll probably serve 3.
Right.
6 more men, including San Francisco labor leader Olaf Tvitmo and prosecution informer Herbert Hocken, were given 6 years.
Oh, no, he's an informant and still got 6 years. So much for that, but
Right.
teach you not to snitch, huh?
Idiot. I wonder if he made it. The others received sentences of between a year and a day and 4 years.
That day is critical of going to actual prison.
You ain't kidding. All prisoners were sent to the federal penitentiary at... Oh, damn.
Oh, they're all together now.
And they sent them to Leavenworth?
Yeah, but they're all together.
Right.
30 defendants appeal. 30 of them did. June 1914, the U.S. 7th Court of Appeals reversed and ordered new trials for 5 of them, including that of Olaf Tvitmo, or whatever his name is. In the case of him, the court ruled that evidence implicated him in the LA Times bombing was irrelevant to federal charges.
Right.
Because that incident did not involve interstate transportation of dynamite. Right.
So he couldn't be.
Citing abundant evidence in the trial record, the court upheld the remaining 25 convictions.
That's it. The following month, the United States District Attorney announced that, in the light of the Court of Appeals ruling, that the government would not retry the 5 defendants whose convictions were reversed.
Because they knew.
The 5 were released.
Yes.
And they're like, we're sorry. We're sorry. The iron workers suffered severe membership losses and appealed to the AFL for funds. The AFL declined to offer financial assistance or permit Gompers to speak at the next Iron Workers Convention.
Wow.
The heads of a number of AFL unions did speak, and the iron worker delegates re-elected Ryan as president.
Okay, well, after the Indianapolis trials, the only cases remaining were of David Kaplan and Matthew Schmidt, 2 anarchists who had helped JJ by buying the dynamite used in the Los Angeles bombings.
Oh, I mean, come on.
Both were indicted in 1911, but they became fugitives and evaded the police.
Oh, no.
July 4th, 1914, a dynamite bomb exploded in a New York tenement apartment occupied by 3 anarchists. Oh. All 3 men died in the explosion, which destroyed the building.
Oh, shit.
Killed a woman in the next apartment and injured many more. Police speculated the bomb was intended to be used the following day in Tarrytown, New York, where a number of anarchists, including one of the dead bombers, were due to face charges connected with attempted invasion of the Rockefeller Summer Estate.
They should have. Fuck Rockefeller.
The incident seemed unconnected with the ironworkers' bombings, but William J. Burns learned that fragments of the bomb showed similar construction to the LA Times bombs.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Based on the similarity of bombs, Burns concentrated his search on anarchist circles in New York City.
New York City?
He found Matthew Schmidt, and he was at the scene when a New York City policeman arrested Matthew Schmidt on February 13th, 1915. Burns' agent had been watching Schmidt for some time, hoping to arrest Kaplan as well. He was like, I got to get Smith and Kaplan. But finally settled for Schmidt alone.
He's like, this will do?
But a search for Smith's belongings found a letter that led them to Seattle, where local police arrested David Kaplan on 18th February 1915.
Jeez.
San Francisco labor leader Olaf Tvitmo, who had been released from prison the previous year, promised that the 2 men would be defended at the expense of West Coast labor unions. The carpenter, an official organ of the Carpenters Union, blamed the prosecution of Kaplan and Schmidt on the enemies of labor.
So the Carpenter must be their little newspaper or whatever.
Must be.
Schmidt and Kaplan were tried separately in L.A.
Of course.
Schmidt was convicted of murder in December 1915 and received life. Upon his conviction, Olaf Tvitmo, secretary of the California Building Trades Council, said there will be 10 years war in Los Angeles. They will pay for this.
They will pay.
They will pay. David Kaplan's first trial ended in a deadlock jury. December 1916, a second jury found him guilty of second-degree manslaughter.
Bullshit.
Right.
That means you get another one.
A deadlock should be a mistrial then.
Yeah, and then
anyways,
and if they get you one, then you should get another one.
You gotta even out, right?
3-game
It's
series.
1-1 right now.
3-game series, boys. Rubber band trial.
The court sentenced him to 10 years in prison.
Oh, fuck that.
He was released in 1923 after 6.5 years with time off for good behavior.
Yeah, that's still too long.
Yeah.
The labor movement in L.A. collapsed,
I'm assuming it did.
and the union membership in the city remained minuscule, almost a century later.
So that's 2010 for you guys keeping track.
Employers refused to honor additional terms of the plea agreement, which required the convening of a meeting of labor union employers and an end to the open shop campaign. Instead, employers redoubled their efforts to break the labor movement in L.A.
Right.
Central Labor Council suffered severe membership losses in the early months of 1912. And the labor movement in the city did not begin to show signs of growth until 1950s. 1950s, yeah.
Well, Darrow himself was indicted on 2 charges of jury tampering. His chief investigator turned state's evidence and even implicated Samuel Gompers in the bribery attempt. Darrow was in financial difficulty and asked for AFL and assistance in raising funds for his defense. Gompers declined to give it. When the presidents of the United Mine Workers of America and Western Federation of Miners issued an appeal for donations, the AFL Executive Council postponed consideration of a donation until the issue was moot. Darrow was acquitted in his first trial. When charges were brought in the second bribery case, the trial ended a hung jury.
Oh,
Look at him getting off, huh?
what do we care if the jury was well endowed?
Right. They were hung. Half of them were women. What the hell?
Right. Journalist Lincoln Steffens was so troubled by the vituperation heaped on the McNamara brothers that he began a campaign to ease economic and class differences in the United States. By mid-1912, a number of prominent individuals, including social workers Jane Addams and Lillian Wald, industrialist Henry Morgenthau, Sr., journalist Paul Kellogg, jurist Louis Brandeis, economist Irving Fisher, pacifist minister John Haynes Holmes. They all had asked President Taft to appoint a commission on industrial relations to ease economic tensions in the country. He's like, we need something, guy. You know shit's going down. Taft's like, people won't remember he is president, so I ain't doing shit. Taft requested that Congress approve a commission. And it did so on August 23rd, 1912. Look at that, Taft. Good for you. The reports of the Commission on Industrial Relations, led by Frank P. Walsh, helped establish the 8-hour day and the World War I era War Labor Board, and profoundly influenced most New Deal labor legislation. Look at that shit, 8-hour day.
Well, Ordy McManigal served 2.5 years in prison before being released on parole. JB became a hero to radicals who believed in violence. Although he had not previously been political, he embraced violent radicalism in return.
Oh, shit.
He said, hey, these people love me, I love them.
Whatever.
Despite repeated attempts by left-wing labor leaders and certain politicians to win his release, he refused to file any parole requests. JB died of cancer in San Quentin on March 9th, 1941. So he spent 30 years in there. Huh?
Wow.
Refused to file any parole requests, huh? He probably was enjoying life in prison, right?
He isn't, whatever. J.J. McNamara left prison after 9 years. The Iron Workers Union welcomed him back as an organizer. He was convicted of threatening the destruction of a building unless the contractor hired union members and was sent back to prison.
Oh, geez, J.J.
Why? Released once more, the union discovered that he had embezzled $200. That's it.
That's it. I mean,
that's enough.
Still 1,000 or something, right?
That's enough, and they fired him. JJ spent the rest of his life drifting from job to job and died tragically in Butte, Montana on May 8th, 1941.
I think it's like Butte.
Damn, they almost died together.
March, April, May, a couple of months apart.
1947, Matthew Schmidt married socially prominent Beth Livermore shortly after he was paroled from San Quentin. Schmidt had been convicted of driving the getaway car. Schmidt was with Livermore when she drowned in 1954 after driving the car into a creek. He survived.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but that's how the episode ends. That's how the... All right.
Schmidt was with Livermore when she drowned in 1954 after driving her car into a creek.
Right.
And he survived.
He survived. She died. And that's how we end the episode.
Into a creek.
Into a creek. Well, they don't know what the definition of a creek is.
A creek.
Maybe it flipped. Still deep enough. A foot of water. They say you can drown in a teaspoon of water. So I don't know how that's possible. You gotta be a fucking moron to do that, but whatever. Yeah, guys. I mean, 1910, some shit was fucked up. You can see the warring factions of the union and the anti-unions, and that's just how it was back then, man. Like,
oh, it was crazy.
Holy shit! These guys didn't want to pay more than what these people were worth, and these guys obviously wanted. And
Teamsters, baby, Teamsters.
That's what they did back in the day. They were still. You got to 1910. You're coming out of the 1800s where shit was settled by violence.
Oh, always.
So we're still in that like time frame and mindset. So. I mean,
and you know what? The only thing I agree with the unionizing it is the set pay. But there's a lot of stuff that they fuck you over.
Well, you have to pay union dues, and you got to do all that, and but set pay and guaranteed hours and vacation and time off and like sick pay and all that type of shit where it's guaranteed.
Right.
Yeah. Other than that,
Union's kind of funky. That's another scam.
Let's see what the internet says. Why are unions bad?
What are the negatives?
Charge dues.
Oh, they're in a strike. So you have to pay them unless you get in a strike. And then that's kind of like Social Security, which we're never going to see.
Well, right. Plus, you got all these, like, with a union, too, you got, like, these fucking hierarchy rules and shit like that. You can't move up because there's rules in place. You got to be here for so many years to get up to this level. And, like, your pay, you have to be here for 7 years before your pay goes up to this and, like, all that type of stuff, you know.
Right. And then the guy that's sitting in the office is getting $500,000 a year.
That's what it says. Unfortunately, some unions spend union dues on six-figure salaries for leaders and luxurious headquarters.
There it is.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, but still, for the most part, you want your wage that's fair. The unions will be there for you, I guess. Because if you're getting higher wages, it means you're paying higher percentages probably to the union.
Right.
So, other than that, 1910, we went all the way back to Los Angeles Times bombing. It's good stuff. Actually, interesting. Never heard of it before.
No.
I think I've passed by it a few times, but never really looked into it. But good stuff. Like I said, we're kind of in a transition. We want to get away from the assassinations and the massacre or the multiple massacre shootings because we got like 8 of those left too.
Right.
So we figured we go into murders where innocent children are getting bludgeoned to death and and women raped. So that's what we're doing for the next few weeks here. At least we got a couple murders from the early aughts and 10s, 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s.
I mean, we got to do all this anyway to get ready for the mafia because they do some gruesome shit.
Right. So, we got
Send
that.
Fingers to wives and stuff.
Right. If you guys want this show ad-free, go ahead and check out patreon.com/bangdang. Ad-free, this show, as well as our shows on Bang Dang Network, which are This Week in Sports History and Battles of the American Civil War, $2 a month. Get all of them ad-free, and you'll be supporting us to keep on doing this stuff. If you guys want to hear this and you guys like it.
Also, if you
guys
guys
listen to the ads on this episode that you heard.
If you guys like wrestling, you can listen to or watch along with us. Monday Night Wars, baby. Back in NWO and WWF days. Or guys like a little bit of a improv comedy. You can listen to Lee and Corey on the Case. These two guys are hilarious. I'm glad we hired them. Check them out. Bang Dang!
In other words, go to Bang Dang Network. Just look that up, and it'll be on Spreaker and all that stuff. You see all our shows there, and then we'll be back next week for some type of murder. So we're the